Good morning. Today is June the 13th, 2020. And as I start this next video, I want to reiterate something that I've said before. What I'm doing in these videos is telling my own story, telling about my own journey to health. And nothing I do here is intended to be medical advice that you need your own physician and need to find a good physician that you trust and work with that physician on any issues of health for yourself. I worked with a physician that I trust through my process, had blood work being done and other testing being done as I went along my journey. Fortunately, my doctor was a medical doctor, a physician that is very tuned into nutrition and doing things in a more natural way, and that works well with these principles that I'm sharing. And the doctors that I mentioned in two previous videos, they make that same point, that they're not establishing. They're both physicians, and they're not establishing a doctor-patient relationship with you when they share information and research. They're not becoming your physician. They're not treating you for anything. They're sharing research and information, and that's what I'm here to do too, is share research and information, and basically just tell my own story of what worked for me and what made me a much healthier man today than I was 2 years ago. And today's video, I'm going to focus on another physician, Dr. Ken Berry. And with the previous two doctors, our recommended books that they've written, and I'm going to do that here today. The book that Dr. Ken Berry has authored is called Lies My Doctor Told Me. And I do recommend this book highly. It may shake the foundations of many things that you've learned. And I will say he's not trying to badmouth physicians. He is a physician, and he's not trying to shake your faith in physicians, but he makes the point that he feels like all healthcare providers, and I would agree, are very well-meaning people. They get into healthcare as a profession to try to help people. They're not there trying to hurt people, and so they're not intentionally lying to you, but often the information they share with you is just not true. and that's where he came up with the title, Lies My Doctor Told Me. Very good book. And he will, he also makes the point, as the other doctors that I've talked about before, they make the point that medical school is not nutrition school. There's very little there. They all say, well, I think we had one class where we covered a little bit of nutrition, but it's definitely not the focus. Nutrition and preventative measures are not the focal point of medical school or medical training. And thus, when doctors get out in practice, they're looked at as experts on everything, including nutrition most of the time. And the doctors who are very knowledgeable in nutrition and more natural type healing, they are knowledgeable about that, not because of what they learned in medical school or residency or internship. They're knowledgeable in those areas because of research they've done on their own. And that's certainly the case with Dr. Ken Berry. He will go through several things that have been part of traditional medical. In his book, Lies My Doctor Told Me, he'll go over several, like pillars of medical knowledge that may not be true. And he looks for research that was done to support those ideas originally. Sometimes these ideas become dogma, and they've been around so long that nobody questions them. But he looks to see, well, what were the original studies that made them come up with these ideas, that made these ideas become so accepted. And oftentimes he finds that there is no research to support it, or if there is research, it was funded, the research was funded by somebody who had conflicts of interest, I would say, people who would gain from the study coming out a certain way. And then he looks for studies that contradict that, and again, looks at how trustworthy are those studies. And just to give you some idea of the things he questions the food pyramid itself, something that has always been considered sacred. He questions that, and salt intake. He'll shake your foundations on that too, and I encourage you to listen to that. The advice that whole wheat and lots of fruits and stuff are good for you. He'll make you think twice about that. And a little bit about Dr. Berry himself. This is important, and I should have mentioned this when I was talking about Dr. Annette Bosworth as well. They both reached a point in their own health where they were becoming insulin resistant, which means they were becoming diabetic. And that's, as in my own case, that's what inspired me to learn more about this and to try to do something natural, if at all possible, to change my diet, to do more exercise, whatever it took to take more natural measures rather than just going straight to medications. And that was true of both Dr. Boz and Dr. Berry, Dr. Ken Berry, that we're talking about today. And he, in fact, was almost 300 pounds and insulin resistant when, he said he felt like such a hypocrite. He would walk into the exam room with diabetic patients and stuff and try to tell them what for and tell them how they need to eat and how they need to live. And here he was almost 300 pounds and his health was getting worse and worse. A lot of like inflammatory type problems that he was having. And so that's what motivated both Dr. Boz was also very motivated by her mother's cancer situation as well. But I think it's important to point out that both of these two doctors were on the doorstep of diabetes themselves and turned things around without medication for either one of them. My same story. That's why their stories appeal to me so much, is they did what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to turn things around without medication, if at all possible. If I needed to go on medication, so be it. And I say that looking into the future, if at some point I need to get on diabetic medication, I'll do it. But again, I recommend Dr. Ken Berry. He's got a very active YouTube channel, just like Dr. Boz. In fact, there was a YouTube video that the two of them made together where they were, I don't forget who was interviewing who, but it ended up just being a really good dialogue between the two of them. Dr. Boz, if you remember, is a board-certified internal medicine doctor, which I call the Sherlock Holmes of medicine, no stone left unturned. And Dr. Berry is a board-certified family practitioner. And as Dr. Berry said, he said, well, the only difference between a family practitioner and an internal med doc is that a family practitioner is an internal medicine doctor who's not afraid to see children, because family practitioners see all ages, So anyway, that'll give you a little taste of his personality. You'll love his accent, his Tennessee accent, or I love it anyway, but maybe I'm biased that direction. But anyway, check out Dr. Ken Berry. Another major thing he covers is the low-fat diet that became so popular back in the late 70s and 80s and is still popular to this day, which was turbocharged by Ansel Keys. Ansel Keys is not an MD, not that matters in the area of nutrition, as we've talked about. He was a physiologist, however, very bright physiologist. And he did the famous 7 countries study, which he published, which changed the recommendations that the American Heart Association and all the experts in heart disease came to the conclusion that fat in your diet increases heart disease. What Dr. Berry and some of Ansel Keys' critics will tell you that in all the years that his guidelines have been followed, heart disease has not improved in this country or in other countries that adopted that same philosophy. In fact, it's stayed the same in some areas and gotten much worse. Obesity has gotten much worse in the years that he recommended low-fat diets. What happens with when you make something low-fat yogurt has more carbohydrates. And that's the worst. More carbohydrates is the worst thing you can do if you're diabetic. But anyway, he feels like that's one of the lies that my doctor told me. And again, no doctor intended to lie to you. They were going with what they felt like was the best evidence. But read his book and check him out on YouTube. He's on Facebook, and again, his wife, who's an RN, is very active on social media, and he's well worth checking out. He helped me a lot. I'll say that. He helped me learn an awful lot. He also attacks salt, that salt is bad for you, and you might find that interesting as well. So check out his book and some of his YouTube videos, and again, he's just one of the ones that helped me out a lot in my journey and helped keep me motivated. That's the thing. I could have done everything I did just with what I learned from Dr. Jason Fung, but I needed motivation and needed to hear the same thing from different doctors in order to stay motivated and to not get pushed off the path, so to speak. So these other doctors have helped me a lot. And I'll stop for now.